I remade this crazy seaweed soup from the latest Netflix show, Culinary Class Wars. And if you live under a rock, this is like the cooking version of Physical 100, where 100 people compete in a culinary showdown. You guys know how much I love putting a creative spin on dishes, so when Chef Choi Hyun-sok recreated Korean seaweed soup with a Western twist, I almost fell off my couch thinking I need to remake this now. And of course there is no real recipe to follow, but it's gonna be okay. I'm Chinese. The challenge behind this dish was to honor seafood, so I added mussels, fish, clams, and leftover chicken to build layers of flavor. And no joke, I used up all my pots and pans by the time I seared the scallops and steamed the fish. Honestly, at this point, I'm feeling pretty proud of myself. Also, I didn't know you could shallow fry scallions to make them crunchy. Now, the key part of this dish is blending the seaweed soup, then adding in some cream for that Western twist. It's kind of like a thick sauce now. I was so curious about how this would taste because everyone on the show was raving about it. On its own, the soup tastes kind of nice, but once you eat everything together, it's flavor overload. What Netflix dish should I recreate next? I remade this crazy mala cream dim sum from the latest Netflix show, Culinary Class Wars. In case you didn't know, this is like the cooking show version of Physical 100, where 100 people compete in a culinary showdown. You guys know how much I love putting a creative spin to dishes, so when Chef Chung Ji-son made her version of fried shrimp balls with mala cream sauce, I almost fell off my couch because the crunch was unreal. There is no real recipe to follow, but just like many things in life, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna go with the flow. The challenge behind this dish was those thinly chopped spring roll pastry, which was so difficult for me because your girl ain't got no knife skills. And oh my gosh, the first batch was such a fail because I put too much shrimp paste and ended up looking like an arancini. So the second time I made the shrimp balls smaller and layered a lot more pastry to get that crunchy texture. And it turned out so much better. I actually preferred having little bits of chili in the mala sauce, but to replicate the original dish, I pushed it through a sieve. All the mukbangers on the show were raving about this dish. Even though I've never had fried shrimp balls before, this was so crunchy and delicious. What Netflix dish should I recreate next? I remade this convenience store chestnut tiramisu from the latest Netflix show, Culinary Class Wars. This is the cooking show version of Physical 100, where 100 people compete in a culinary showdown. So many of you guys requested for me to recreate this recipe, so here it is. When Chef Napoli Matvia made a tiramisu from only a few convenience store snacks, I almost fell off my chair because this was so creative and I needed to know how good it actually tastes. The key to this recipe is making a chestnut puree using snack chestnuts and milk, then combining this with cream cheese and cream. The funniest part is that because there was no cream available, Napoli Mafia ended up scraping out cream from a lot of cream buns. Sadly, I only bought 3 buns, which wasn't enough, but hey, let's keep going. Also, did you guys know that CU in Korea will be selling this tiramisu? To assemble the tiramisu, I ended up soaking the digestive biscuits in hazelnut latte, then layered on creamy chestnut paste on top and repeated this 2 more times. I then grated some milk chocolate on top for that classic tiramisu look. This tiramisu is so delicious and full of chestnut flavor. What Netflix dish should I recreate next? So do you remember that famous tiramisu I made from Culinary Class Wars? Well, I had leftover ingredients, so I decided to make a different version of the original recipe. If you remember, I didn't have enough cream last time because I bought only 3 cream buns. So today I'm adding in whipped heavy cream, then combining this with leftover chestnut puree and also adding some more cream cheese. This definitely made it creamier, which I really like. For the tiramisu, I made some pour over coffee and dipped traditional lady fingers into the coffee. While Napoli Mafia's recipe from Culinary Class Wars uses digestive biscuits and toffee nut latte, I was curious to see how this dish would turn out when combined with traditional tiramisu ingredients. I love experimenting in the kitchen, and being a food content creator generally means that I have a lot of leftover ingredients. I let the tiramisu sit for a few hours in my fridge, then sprinkled in some cocoa powder on top. I hate to admit this, but I reckon this recipe tastes better than original. It's creamier and has a nice balance of flavors from the bitter coffee and the sweet chestnut puree. Obviously, this is no longer a convenience store challenge, but if you've got access to these ingredients, I would highly recommend you to try out this recipe. Let me know what you think. I remade this crazy tteokbokki-inspired dessert from the latest Netflix show, Culinary Class Wars. In case you didn't know, this is like a cooking show version of Physical 100, where 100 people compete in a culinary showdown. You guys know how much I love putting a creative spin on dishes, so when Chef Edward Lee made his tteokbokki-inspired dessert, I almost fell off my couch because this idea was pure genius. His creativity yet humbleness blew my slippers off. Anyway, there is no real recipe to follow, but you know the drill by now, we're gonna wing it. The dock component is made of blended rice cakes with water, mixed with whipped heavy cream and meringue. Now, I didn't want to risk having raw egg whites, so I substituted the meringue component for condensed milk and Greek yogurt instead. To be honest, I was really worried about making the Gaj Jang caramel because the first time I made it, it seized when I added cream. So I was kind of panicking when I did this part, but luckily it worked out. Unfortunately, my caramel hardened after I plated it up, so can someone please tell me what went wrong? Overall, I really loved this dish. The dock semifreddo tastes like frozen yogurt with some chewy mochi bits inside. What Netflix dish should I recreate next? I remade this crazy Kentucky fried tofu from the latest Netflix show, Culinary Class Wars. In case you haven't seen it yet, this is like a cooking show version of Physical 100 where 100 people compete in a culinary showdown. You guys know how much I love putting a creative spin on dishes, so when Chef Edward Lee made his fried tofu that looked like fried chicken, I almost fell off my couch again because apparently this tasted like real fried chicken. So of course I have to remake this. There is no real recipe to follow, but you know the drill by now, we're just gonna wing it. This dish is part of the Tofu Hell Challenge, and honestly, if I were doing that challenge, I'd have brain fog by the time I have to create my second dish. I'm gonna tell you a secret, and that is I suck at frying things because I'm usually too stingy to use up a lot of oil, but this is my first time frying tofu. I think I'm doing alright. And it's also my first time making pickled onions and capsicum. What really blew my slippers off was that Chef Edward Lee cooked up chicken pieces and then brushed that chicken fat on the fried tofu to make it really taste like fried chicken. So the question is, does it really taste like fried chicken? Not 100%, but because of the chicken oil and MSG, it really does have that fried chicken mouthfeel. What Netflix dish should I recreate next? I remade this crazy Meatball Bas from the latest Netflix show, Culinary Class Wars. In case you didn't know, this is like a cooking show version of Physical 100 where 100 people compete in a culinary showdown. You guys loved my mala cream dim sum video, so when you asked me to recreate Jeong Ji-sun's Bas, I almost fell off my couch and rolled into my kitchen because this dish is challenging AF and I am so down. The challenge behind this dish was heating up sugar syrup at the right temperature and then flipping it upside down to form solidified silk-like sugar threads, which not gonna lie was very daunting to me at first, which is why I avoided recreating this recipe for the longest time. And because your girl doesn't have a candy thermometer, can you guess how many attempts I made before I got it right? Comment down below, and if you get it right, I'll gift you my e-cookbook for free. And yes, I took a shortcut because I didn't want to recreate meatballs from scratch using pork belly and dried radish greens. Instead, I made a delicious black vinegar sauce to go with air-fried supermarket meatballs. Nonetheless, this was so delicious and fun to make. What Netflix dish should I recreate next? I finally remade Cooking Maniac's Pad Thai from the latest Netflix show, Culinary Class Wars. Not gonna lie, I wasn't gonna recreate this dish, but so many of you guys requested for this, so since you asked, being a corporate girly juggling a full-time job with content creation, I love a good ramen hack. So when Cooking Maniac whipped up a Pad Thai made from Korean instant ramen, I almost fell off my couch because I love a good late-night snack. I say that this was probably one of the easiest recipes from the show to recreate, which actually makes sense given it was a convenience store challenge. The combination of the sauteed garlic, onions, oyster sauce, soy sauce, ramen seasoning, sugar, and lemon juice really transformed this regular Jin ramen into something that does remind me of Pad Thai. Fun fact, I used to work as a waitress at a Thai restaurant, and one of the most ordered dishes was Pad Thai with chicken and prawns. So because I couldn't get wok anywhere, I substituted it with prawns. Overall, this dish was a flavor bomb. It was salty, sweet, sour, spicy. Anyway, this is probably going to be my last dish from the show because I already recreated 7 recipes. See you on the show for season 2. Just kidding. I remade Chef Edward Lee's Tofu Brulee from the latest Netflix show, Culinary Class Wars. I know in my previous video, I said that the Pad Thai was going to be my last recipe from this show, but a lot of you guys have requested for the Tofu Brulee, so since you asked, I'll serve. By now you should know that I'm such a big fan of Chef Edward Lee, so when he made a Tofu Brulee at the end of the Tofu Hell Challenge, I almost fell off my couch because his creativity is like if I was in that challenge, I'd probably have a mental breakdown halfway through. I poached the tofu in orange and passion fruit juice with a touch of vanilla extract and mandarin peel. This syrup was so fragrant and my apartment was smelling so good. Honestly, this show has taught me to think outside the box when it comes to cooking. Like the same ingredients such as tofu can be used in a variety of dishes, both sweet and savory. I hope that you guys enjoyed my 8-episode Culinary Class Wars series. I'll definitely be back for season 2. In the meantime, what should I recreate next?